In the heart of medieval France, when kingdoms were torn apart by war and despair, a young girl rose from the fields of poverty to become one of the most extraordinary figures in history. Her name was Joan of Arc. Neither queen nor noble, she was a peasant, illiterate, and only a teenager. Yet she carried a vision so powerful that kings listened, armies followed, and a nation found hope again. This is the story of the girl who became a warrior, a saint, and a legend. Joan was born in 1412 in a small village called Domremy in northeastern France. Her family was simple, farmers who worked hard, prayed deeply, and knew the hardships of war. France, at this time, was a land in chaos. The 100 Years' War between France and England had left towns burning, fields destroyed, and people broken. Joan grew up hearing the cries of her people. She saw soldiers march through villages, leaving fear and ashes behind. But while the world seemed dark, something unusual stirred within her. At the age of 13, Joan began to hear what she described as voices from heaven. Saints and angels, she believed, spoke to her. They gave her a divine mission: save France, drive out the English, and crown the true king. It sounded impossible. She was just a peasant girl. She could not read or write. She had never held a sword, yet she believed with all her heart that God had chosen her. Joan did not hesitate. She knew France had a rightful heir, Charles, known as the Dauphin. But Charles was weak, uncertain, and surrounded by doubt. Much of his land was under English control, and he had not even been crowned king. Joan believed she was sent to change that. She went to local commanders and priests, insisting she had a divine mission. At first they laughed. A teenage girl leading armies? It sounded absurd. But Joan's determination could not be ignored. She spoke with passion, with conviction, and with a courage that no one could explain. Slowly, whispers spread. Perhaps this young girl truly was chosen by God. Finally, in 1429, she was granted an audience with the Dauphin. When she entered the court, Charles tried to test her. He disguised himself as one of his nobles, hiding in the crowd. But Joan walked straight past the finely dressed lords, fell to her knees before him, and said, "Gentle Dauphin, I am sent by God to raise your kingdom and crown you in Reims." Those words shook the court. How had she known? From that moment, Charles listened. And within weeks, Joan, still only 17 years old, was given armor, a sword, and command of troops. Imagine the sight: a young girl in shining white armor, carrying a banner painted with holy images, riding at the front of an army. Soldiers who had long been beaten and discouraged suddenly found new hope. Joan did not fight with sword and shield, she fought with faith. She inspired men to believe again, to rise again, to fight not just for themselves, but for their country and their God. Her first great test came at the city of Orleans, which was under English siege. 4 months, the French had tried and failed to break through. Morale was low. Supplies were scarce. Defeat seemed certain. But when Joan arrived, everything changed. She rode along the lines, shouting encouragement. She told the soldiers that God had promised victory. Her words spread like fire. With her banner raised high, the French launched a fierce assault. Battles raged for days, arrows filled the sky, and cannons thundered. Joan was wounded by an arrow, yet she refused to retreat. She returned to the battlefield, holding her banner higher than ever. And then, it happened. The French stormed the English forts. The siege of Orleans was broken. The English retreated. The impossible had become reality. A teenage girl had led France to one of its greatest victories. The victory at Orleans was just the beginning. Joan pressed on. She urged Charles to march north, to reclaim the lands that were lost, and most importantly, to be crowned king at Reims. One by one, towns and cities surrendered as Joan and the French army advanced. Her presence was like a miracle. People believed God was with her. Finally, in July 1429, Charles entered Reims Cathedral. Joan stood by his side as he was crowned King Charles VII of France. The girl from Domremy had fulfilled her mission. She had given France a king. And yet, her journey was not over. But not everyone celebrated Joan's rise. She had enemies, both among the English and even among some French nobles who envied her influence. In 1430, during a campaign near Compiègne, Joan was captured by Burgundian forces allied with the English. The people of France expected their king to rescue her. But Charles did nothing. Political fears, selfish advisors, and cowardice left Joan abandoned. The English, eager to destroy the symbol of French resistance, placed her on trial. She was accused of witchcraft, heresy, and dressing like a man. They twisted her visions into lies. They mocked her faith. Yet even in the courtroom, Joan was fearless. She stood before learned scholars and priests, answering with wisdom far beyond her years. When asked if she was in God's grace, she replied, "If I am not, may God place me there. If I am, may He keep me there." Her words silenced the judges, but her fate was sealed. On May 30th, 1431, Joan was led to the marketplace of Rouen. She was only 19 years old. A wooden stake was prepared. Piles of wood surrounded it. The crowd gathered, some weeping, some jeering, all waiting to witness the end of the girl who had defied empires. Joan asked for a cross. A sympathetic soldier made one from wood and handed it to her. She held it tight, her eyes fixed on the sky. As the flames rose, she cried out, "Jesus! Jesus!" The fire consumed her body, but her spirit could not be destroyed. The English thought they had silenced her forever, but instead, they created a martyr. 25 years later, the church re-examined her trial. The verdict was overturned. Joan was declared innocent. Her name was clear. Centuries later, she was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church. Today, she is remembered as Saint Joan of Arc, a symbol of courage, faith, and the power of conviction. Her story lives on because she proved that greatness does not come from crowns, castles, or armies. It can rise from the humblest of villages. It can live in the heart of a teenage girl. Joan of Arc's life was short, but it was enough to change the course of history. She turned despair into hope. She transformed defeat into victory, and though she died in flames, she became immortal in the memory of her people. Her voice still echoes across the centuries, reminding us that one person, guided by faith and courage, can stand against the mightiest empires. She was Joan, the girl who heard voices, the peasant who wore armor, the warrior who gave France a king, the saint who still inspires the world.